Good evening, everyone. I'm Beth Perkins with St. Jude Children's Research Hospital. We still have people signing in, so let's just give it another minute or so, and then we'll get started. Okay, let's go ahead and get started. I want to be mindful of everyone's time. I'm Beth Perkins. I'm with St. Jude Children's Research Hospital. I'm actually the National Relationship Manager for NSHSS, and I hope that I met some of you a couple of weeks ago in Washington, D.C. But I'm really excited that we are hosting the webinar. And I'm very excited that y'all are going to hear from Lori Ventura. And Lori is the Director of Happiness and Corporate Wellness with Vision Quest Coaching. And Lori is instrumental and very important to our St. Jude Leadership Society. She helps lead a national cohort on developing a better self. It's our third cohort for St. Jude Leadership Society. But Lori has spent more than 30 years in education, from the elementary classroom to the graduate school cohort. Lori has loved seeing every student explore, reflect, and grow. This passion for learning is also fulfilled through her current role as Director of Happiness and Corporate Wellness Facilitator at Vision Quest Coaching. Lori and her team spend their days improving employee health and wellness through the lens of deep health, specifically in the physical, social, emotional, and cognitive domains, both in person and online. And tonight, Lori is going to be talking to you about developing a better you. So Lori, thank you for assisting tonight, and everyone, please enjoy.
Thanks so much for that amazing introduction, Beth. I really appreciate it. And thanks to all of you for attending. I'm really honored to be having a chance to talk with you tonight. I wish I could see you all. That's the only drawback. So what I'd like to do just out of the gates, if you have any questions, please put them in the chat, and hopefully Beth can monitor that for me, and we can address those as they come up. Please don't feel like you need to wait till the end. I prefer conversation, especially when it comes to topics about you. So what an honor to be invited by St. Jude, one of my favorite organizations. When I visit there, I am reminded that really that's how the world should operate, in such cooperation. It's an amazing place. And then also to be invited by NSHSS is just a tremendous honor. Our children have all been members when it's at the appropriate time in their life, and continue to engage. And so I can't, believe I'm here talking with all of you. Thank you for having me. One thing that I really love about NSHSS is that their tagline, be honored and be more. And I love the mindset there that it instills, first of all, gratitude, and then second of all, be more. And that's really one of the foundations of our wellness programming through Vision Quest Coaching. We believe in the concept of thinking on a continuum, right? So I'm going to get into this a little more in the presentation, but it's really important that when we think about ourselves and our behaviors and our choices and our habits, we think of them on a continuum rather than in a binary way. So we're often really tempted to say something like, oh my gosh, I was so bad this weekend. I ate, fill in the blank, or I've been so bad, I haven't worked out in whatever. And what we really hope that you walk away from this webinar is with some good tidbits, a few facts and education pieces that will help call you to action and help make yourself more accountable to this mindset of progress over perfection. be more. It doesn't say be perfect, right? So can we be a better version of ourselves? And can we give ourselves that grace when we're working through our health and wellness and our habits? So instead of saying I was bad over the weekend, we say, you know what? I had a really great time. I socialized, I had fun, I ate what was provided. And now today I'm going to start maybe eating whatever it is, fill in the blank, something that helps get me to my goals. So that's kind of the umbrella. That's the lens or the paradigm I hope you listen to this presentation with, and please drop any comments in the chat. Okay. Oops, let me go back one. All right. So wellness building blocks. We're going to talk about this. I have a really fun video to show you. If you've seen it, just enjoy it. We're going to try to skip.
This is a metabolism killer.
Sorry about the ads.
It's a metabolism killer. And even
There's a well-known story about a university professor who wanted to make a point about how we make the most of our time. The professor stood before his class with some items in front of him. When the class began, without speaking, he picked up a large empty jar and proceeded to fill it with rocks about 2 inches in diameter. He then asked the students if the jar was full. They agreed that it was full. So the professor then picked up a box of pebbles and poured them into the jar. He shook the jar lightly and watched as the pebbles rolled into the open areas between the rocks. The professor then asked the students again if the jar was full. They chuckled and agreed that it was indeed full this time. The professor picked up a box of sand and poured it into the jar. The sand filled the remaining open areas of the jar. Now, said the professor, I want you to recognize that this jar signifies your life. The rocks are the truly important things, such as family, health, and relationships. If all else was lost and only the rocks remained, your life would still be meaningful. The pebbles are the other things that matter in your life, such as work or school. The sand signifies the remaining small stuff and material possessions. If you were to put sand into the jar first, there is no room for the rocks or the pebbles. The same can be applied to your lives. If you spend all your time and energy on the small stuff, you will never have room for the things that are truly important. Pay attention to the things in life that are critical to your happiness and well-being. Take time to look after your health, play with your children, go for a run, write a letter to your grandmother. There will always be time to go to work, clean the house, or watch TV. Take care of the rocks first. The things that really matter, set your priorities. The rest is just pebbles and sand.
Let me figure out how to close this out here. All right. Okay, so basically, why did I choose this video? Because so often, especially in high school, we are bombarded, right, with many opportunities and responsibilities, especially for many of you who might be in your junior and senior year. You're really at an all-time high in terms of what's expected of you, probably the most you've been ever in your life. And so it can get confusing. And we send a lot of conflicting messages. At least I know we had to have this conversation in our house where we stress the importance of grades and doing your best and getting into a good school. And somehow it kind of feels like an either or option. Like I either have to get good grades and stay up all night, or I can sleep and not get good grades, right? And so this video is really to give you a minute to think about what are those big rocks in your life. And I want to just ask you to think about it. We know for sure for everybody, it needs to be your health and well-being. I'm going to give you that answer, right? Because without it, your life doesn't exist. And we don't always hear it that way. And it always sounds like very cliche, like, oh, you need to take care of yourself. But what you do right now has an impact on your life in your 20s, your 30s, your 40s, your 50s, your 60s, and beyond. And we didn't know it until very recently, but our choices in our teens and really starting in the 20s and 30s have a significant role in our longevity and well-being. It has an immediate role right now on how you feel. So I encourage you to think about what are those big rocks in your life outside of health and well-being. Maybe you want to just put something in the chat right now and tell us, what are some of your big rocks? I don't see any messages. Okay, well, maybe I'll fill them in for you. So obviously your health and well-being, your relationships, right? And those two are some of the biggest things. When we're going to break down now, what are those big blocks in terms of your health and well-being?
Hey, Lori,
Yes.
someone did respond saying family, education, health, and balance.
Excellent. Okay, great. Thank you. Really good. And I love that you said family. Our relationships have such a profound impact on our overall health and wellness. Obviously, your education, right? And sometimes it's hard to discern how much of the education is a big rock, how much is a pebble, and how much, like, what things we're doing for our education constitute as sand. Sometimes I think being on Instagram, because of my job, I have to really always be finding the, experts. And that's a great way to find experts in various fields. And they're vetted out by the number of followers, etc. But I sometimes trick myself into thinking that the time on social media is all for education. And that's one of those things that really most experts are kind of putting in the category of sand. And what happens is when we start there in the morning, when we wake up and we start scrolling, or at night before we go to bed, we're procrastinating on our sleep a little bit. We're slowly, just visualize when you're on your social media, slowly just pouring that sand into that jar. And if we haven't put the big rocks in first, it's going to be really hard to get all those rocks and pebbles in there if we put the sand in there first. And so that's just one thought on that. Okay, let's talk about what your areas of stress. So we know that in your stage of life right now, you have got a lot of different things coming at you. We've included these handouts in the chat. Is that right, Beth? They can get them in the chat.
Yeah,
So,
Hannah just posted the link. So just click on the link and it will take you directly to the handouts.
and if you don't have time to color it in or a way to color it on your computer now as a PDF, you can print it and go through this exercise. I encourage you to do it with your family or even with your friends, because talking about your stress helps in a productive way where you're identifying it and you're kind of quantifying it. It does help you manage it, and it helps you build resilience, because we know that we can't control all the stress that we receive in our life. Very little of it is within our circle of influence and circle of control. But the only thing we can control is our response to it. And so it's really important that we learn how to build stress resilience. And so effective leaders have that ability, and they have habits in place to manage their stress, health, and well-being, because they're all interconnected. So what we want to do first as a first step is awareness. Which factors here are causing the most stress in your life right now? So you can see it breaks it down into 6 different categories. Environmental stress. So that's like pollution, noise, violence, your physical environment. For example, if you stop and think about being in like a big box store or a mall, you can kind of hear and feel the difference in the lighting, the difference in the sound, right? If you stop and visualize yourself like out on a walk in a quiet, nature-filled area, you can revisit the sound and the light that you're experiencing, and you can kind of feel the difference, right? It's palpable, even though you're not in that environment. You think about it. So think about, on a daily basis, how are your environmental stressors? Do you live in a loud place, or do you have a lot of loud background noise? Is it quiet and calm? How much of that is providing a stress in your daily life? And then you just color it in, here, if it's a very little bit, and you just kind of increase the slice of the pie as it correlates to your experience. The second area is physical stress. So that's talking about actual physical stress on your body, injury, illness, overtraining, poor sleep. Right now, I'm experiencing a little bit more physical stress. You could probably hear my voice. I did a Tough Mudder event with 80 of our corporate wellness clients on Sunday. I was yelling and cheering them on. My voice has actual physical stress to it right now. So that plays a role in your overall health and well-being. How much physical stress are you under right now? Mental stress is the third category. Decision fatigue, information overload, and perfectionism. I suspect that probably for many of you, the first time in your life, the first time kids experience it is that junior and senior year of high school, when they're really starting to engage in big decisions, thinking through a lot of things like career choice, next steps after high school, whether it's college, technical school, employment. There's more decision making happening between your junior and senior year of high school than ever before in your life. And you might not know what that's called, because people always say, oh, don't ask the high school kids what their plans are. They don't want to talk about it. Well, you probably do want to actually talk about it. But the thing is that you're in the middle of making the decisions and you're probably experiencing decision fatigue. And when you're experiencing decision fatigue, it's hard to talk about those things. So while you appreciate people taking an interest, it just physically and mentally might be a little bit overloaded, right? So what areas here, how much of your stress and this piece of pie are you experiencing right now? And then emotional stress. It's different than mental stress. This is grief, anger, shame, fear, failure. How much of that are you experiencing right now? I imagine, for some of us, we're experiencing grief. Some of us, it anger or shame about decisions we've made because we're in this fixed mindset of good or bad. And we're learning and growing. And in high school, sometimes we don't make the decisions that put us in the better category. And so there's shame associated with that. But the first step in letting go of that is recognizing it and scaling. How much of that are you experiencing right now? Because once you recognize it, it's the first step in moving through it and beyond it. Because you're not defined by what's happening to you right this minute. That's not the sum total of your person. It's just what you're experiencing. And the key is, how does that affect me? And how do I move through that? The next area of stress people experience is existential: hopelessness, despair, lack of meaning. This can look kind of come to us in a couple different ways. Lack of meaning really, I find this most often in our more seasoned clients, people who are lived, upwards of half of their lifespan, and they're kind of revisiting why they're here. But hopelessness and despair do come to us in different ways, whether it's based on what we're experiencing socially or cognitively or even physically in any of these areas. People in Maui right now probably are experiencing a ton of hopelessness and despair, really profound difficulties for what they're encountering. So think about how much of this you're experiencing now. And it doesn't need to be that your town caught on fire, right? You can be experiencing hopelessness and despair for other reasons. But how much of that existential stress, your greater meaning, are you being stressed by right now? And try to quantify it by coloring in the pieces of the pie. The next area is social stress. And I saved this one for last. I went in this way on purpose because I feel like social stress is peaking for a lot of high school students right now. Maybe not for you. Maybe, you've got it all in a good place, or you're less affected by your social interactions and relationships. But social stress can come in forms of loneliness, rejection, lack of community. Maybe your values and priorities aren't congruent with the peer group in high school that you're experiencing. So you're a little out of sync. Or maybe you think you should be socializing a certain way in high school because that's how everybody socializes, but that's really not how you want to socialize. And that can create some stress until you figure out the best way for you to socialize and that it's okay to be different. So right now, think about that. which area would you color in? How much would you color in this piece of the pie? What I want to do is ask you to think about which of these areas, maybe one or two, are you experiencing the most stress, and drop it in the chat. Let us know. Social, existential, emotional, mental, physical, or environmental. I don't think I can see the chat even when I pull it up. So Beth,
Well, I'm not seeing anything yet, but I will,
getting anything? How much stress are, or maybe it's in the Q&A, huh? Probably in there.
no, I've checked that as well. So,
Okay. So really give me just your top area. And even if you didn't fill it in, like what do you feel like? Which one of these words grabs you?
I can say mine is emotional stress. I'll participate, Lori.
Thank you.
Oh, wait, here we've got some that are coming in through the Q&A.
I know I can count you guys.
Okay, someone said social.
Mhm.
Rocio Kersey said emotional, and there was mental stress. Ashley, mental stress. Mental stress is a biggie, and then here's existential stress.
Great. What's my purpose here? What should I be doing with my life?
And it says the chat is disabled. So Hannah, if you can enable the chat, that would be fabulous. Primarily it's social, mental, emotional,
Yeah, great.
and then one existential.
Yes, that's exactly what I would expect right now, for where you're at in your timeline, in your life, in your development. And to know that that's completely typical of a high school experience, I think should be comforting and reassuring, and that you're probably exactly where you need to be. The difference that for you, since you're participating in these leadership seminars, is you're building a toolkit that's going to help you manage that stress. And first, by recognizing it. Second, by naming it, right? Like, okay, this is what it is. Third, by normalizing it. Right. I'm supposed to have this. I am engaging in my life, right? And the more I engage, the more I'm going to experience and the more stress I'll be having. And then the next step is, how do I build a toolkit that helps me be more resilient to it? Because I'm amazing and I can take on great things. And I just need to know what I'm going to do to help me manage those things most effectively so I can have fun at them. Okay. Okay. So how do we manage that? I'm going to tell you right now, these are the three things: sleep, number one, sleep, exercise, and nutrition, in that order. Now, I know, like, we're probably, as a mom, I probably spent the majority of my life harping on nutrition and sleep with the kids, but recent research has come out overwhelmingly convincing on the correlation between sleep and physical and mental health, sleep and the reduction of anxiety and depression, and sleep on our ability to have good decision making and improving a reaction time and performance. So sleep is critical. I hope that we're saying goodbye to the generation that I know that we're a part of, Beth and I, where like no sleep was a badge of honor because we were hardworking. And we've done damage, sorry, Beth, to our, and to the parents who are listening, that it's not too late to repair, but there is a significant, and I can't underscore this enough, significant research about the importance of sleep, especially on the developing brain. So we're going to talk about that in a minute. The next is exercise. Do you know the number one prescribed treatment for all-cause mortality and all mental health experiences, episodes, and illnesses is exercise? And by things of all-cause mortality, I'm talking about like the horseman diseases like cancer, neurocognitive diseases like Parkinson's, MS, Alzheimer's. We're also talking about any vascular diseases, any cardiac, heart disease. The number one prescribed course of treatment for all of it is exercise. It's amazing. And it goes so much more beyond just like feeling good and looking good. And we're going to talk about that here too. And the last thing is nutrition. And we really make it very simple. We'll talk about that in a minute. There's just a couple really two simple behaviors that you can adjust in your life and kind of scale towards doing more of that will help you significantly. Okay, let's talk about sleep. How much sleep are you getting honestly? And it's okay, because remember, we're in a growth mindset. And I'm going to tell you right now, there was a period of time where I was under 4 hours. So I have had a massive turnaround in my life in the last 6 years. But how much sleep? And I think Hannah inserted
Beth, can you insert the poll, please?
for sleep. On average, how much time do you think you're sleeping a night? Less than 6 hours? And you can go ahead and click it. 6 to 7, 7 to 8, 8 to 9. And then I'll see the results here. Be honest with yourself, and it's okay. You're in a safe space. Do we have results?
Hannah, do you have those?
Drum roll, please. Do you hear my drum roll?
Yes, I do, guys. They are coming in now. We have the most popular for sleep is 7 to 8 hours.
Wow.
The most popular for how many hours a week you exercise is less than an hour. And how many servings of fruit and veggies do you get per day is 2 to 3.
Excellent. Okay. Great. Thank you for that. I might ask you to just remind me when we get to the exercise and the food, but I think I've got it. All right, great. Thank you. All right. So 7 to 8 was the highest. How many people do we have under 6?
Let's see, we have about 50%.
Oh, we do have 50% under 6. Excellent. Okay. Thank you for being honest. I'm going to share with you a couple things about this. Okay. So here are some signs. Can you see this? I hope you can see that your sleep isn't, let me just move there, working for you. Your mind is foggy, you're unhappy, you're getting sick often, struggling with weight, either too high or too low. And you're, objectively, your workouts are too hard. You're feeling more anxious or unsettled than usual. This is a key one. We know that COVID has disrupted experiencing COVID and the shift in work schedule and work environment has disrupted sleep habits beyond what we've ever seen before. And we've also seen a rise in anxiety higher than ever before. And they're starting to come out with research on correlating the two. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you a little video about sleep. And then I'm going to ask you to look at, I'm going to show a sign about sleep and recovery, and then ask you to pick 1 or 2 ideas that you think you could incorporate. And I'll probably talk a little bit in between there. Sorry again for the ad.
In this box here, I have something really cool from Remarkable. Let's open it up and take a look. In 1965, 17-year-old high school student Randy Garner stayed awake for 264 hours. That's 11 days to see how he'd cope without sleep. On the second day, his eyes stopped focusing. Next, he lost the ability to identify objects by touch. By day 3, Garner was moody and uncoordinated. At the end of the experiment, he was struggling to concentrate, had trouble with short-term memory, became paranoid, and started hallucinating. Although Garner recovered without long-term psychological or physical damage, for others, losing shut-eye can result in hormonal imbalance, illness, and in extreme cases, death. We're only beginning to understand why we sleep to begin with, but we do know it's essential. Adults need 7 to 8 hours of sleep a night, and adolescents need about 10. We grow sleepy due to signals from our body telling our brain we are tired, and signals from the environment telling us it's dark outside. The rise in sleep-inducing chemicals like adenosine and melatonin send us into a light doze that grows deeper, making our breathing and heart rate slow down, and our muscles relax. This non-REM sleep is when DNA is repaired and our bodies replenish themselves for the day ahead. In the United States, it's estimated that 30% of adults and 66% of adolescents are regularly sleep deprived. This isn't just a minor inconvenience. Staying awake can cause serious bodily harm. When we lose sleep, learning, memory, mood, and reaction time are affected. Sleeplessness may also cause inflammation, hallucinations, high blood pressure, and it's even been linked to diabetes and obesity. In 2014, a devoted soccer fan died after staying awake for 48 hours to watch the World Cup. While his untimely death was due to a stroke, studies show that chronically sleeping fewer than 6 hours a night increases stroke risk by 4.5 times compared to those getting a consistent 7 to 8 hours of shut-eye. For a handful of people on the planet who carry a rare inherited genetic mutation, sleeplessness is a daily reality. This condition, known as fatal familial insomnia, places the body in a nightmarish state of wakefulness, forbidding it from entering the sanctuary of sleep. Within months or years, this progressively worsening condition leads to dementia and death. How can sleep deprivation cause such immense suffering? Scientists think the answer lies with the accumulation of waste products in the brain. During our waking hours, our cells are busy using up our day's energy sources, which get broken down into various byproducts, including adenosine. As adenosine builds up, it increases the urge to sleep, also known as sleep pressure. In fact, caffeine works by blocking adenosine's receptor pathways. Other waste products also build up in the brain, and if they're not cleared away, they collectively overload the brain and are thought to lead to the many negative symptoms of sleep deprivation. So, what's happening in our brain when we sleep to prevent this? Scientists found something called the glymphatic system, a cleanup mechanism that removes this buildup and is much more active when we're asleep. It works by using cerebrospinal fluid to flush away toxic byproducts that accumulate between cells. Lymphatic vessels, which serve as pathways for immune cells, have recently been discovered in the brain, and they may also play a role in clearing out the brain's daily waste products. While scientists continue exploring the restorative mechanisms behind sleep, we can be sure that slipping into slumber is a necessity if we want to maintain our health and our sanity.
Okay, so a couple takeaways. Some of that was pretty dramatic, I know, but here's why we selected that video. One, to show you the continuum of sleep and sleep trouble, right? So at the very far end of it, we have that crazy rare, very few people have that familial disease and genetic mutation. And a little bit further in, we have the diagnosed like insomnia, right? And then scooching down towards like getting closer to normal sleep, we have the idea that it is totally within normal to wake up to about 3 times for about 20 minutes a night. So a lot of times we think that a perfect night's sleep must be like I get in my bed and I go to sleep and I wake up in the morning. And especially for the parents of any of the kids, if you're listening or watching this in a replayed tape, it is totally normal to wake up for a period of 20 minutes within the evening during your sleep time for up to 3 different times. So knowing that helps you can reassure yourself and feel like this is normal or typical. And now I can go back to sleep, because what happens is people then start thinking, I can't sleep, I'm not sleeping. And they start stressing about it, which causes a stress response and then prohibits them from going back to sleep again. So, sorry, there we go. So that's an important takeaway, right? But let's talk a little bit about the idea of the washing of the brain that happens when you're sleeping. And I give this analogy a lot to anytime I'm talking about sleep. I work with a couple sleep scientists for our wellness programs. And one thing we've joked about, it's like, basically, I'm going to give you an analogy, and I hope you remember this when you go off to college, and even tonight when you're choosing like social media or sleep. So if you have a dishwasher, or even if you don't have a dishwasher and you wash your dishes in your sink, just pretend that you've put all of the dishes without rinsing them, either in the dishwasher or the sink, and you've left them there overnight, and you didn't turn the dishwasher on, or you didn't put any soap on the dishes that are just sitting in the sink. And then you wake up the next morning and you go about your business, and it's time for dinner, and you need to get your dishes for dinner. And so you've, added some breakfast dishes in there, some lunch stuff, and you go to take the dishes out of the sink that have been sitting there for 24 hours, or out of the dishwasher that hasn't been run. And then you're going to eat your dinner on top of that. Like, that could be, gag worthy, right? Could you imagine eating your dinner on a plate that you didn't rinse from the day before, and you're going to continue to use, and then do that the next day, and the next day, and the next day? And that is a great metaphor for what your brain needs to do at night when you're sleeping. So if you are trying to decide, should I sleep or should I stay up? Remember the dishwasher. You want to have clean dishes to eat on, and you want a clean brain the next morning. A couple of really important things happen as far as learning when you're sleeping, and in terms of that brain washing period. That's the time when everything you've learned from the day before gets washed and basically, like laundry, folded and put away, right? And so if you don't give yourself proper sleep, you're really putting yourself at a disadvantage for your learning. And so my background originally was in education, and I taught for 20 years, and all the way up to the graduate school level. And I cannot stress to you enough the importance of sleep and learning. So really, it gives your brain that chance to wash it. And we have a couple recommendations we're going to talk about here for timing. I'll get into that in a minute, but carry that analogy with you. Sleep is so important. You don't want to be eating on dirty dishes, and you don't want to be taking a dirty brain to school the next day to try to learn and manage all that social and emotional stress that's coming to you. Getting that good sleep will help you be more resilient to all that stuff you're facing in a day. Okay. Oh, here, perfect. This is the duration recommendations. Here along the left side, you see hours of sleep. And then here it's scaled, I don't know if, by age. So here are the hours of sleep, and then the recommendations. So basically in your age here, you want to be getting 8 to 10 hours of sleep a night. And so 7 is that magic number that really is the threshold. So many things happen at 7. 7 is a very lucky number for a reason. So research has shown that under 7 hours, you're 40% more likely to get sick when you've been exposed to germs and contaminants. Over 7, you're significantly less likely to get it, because you're giving your body the proper rest it needs to mount your defense. Under 7, you're more likely to experience additional anxiety, or increased or exacerbated anxiety and depression. Over 7, you're likely to see a little bit of a diminishing return or better management of those things. Some people don't have, reduced total experiences, from anxiety and depression. So obviously, depending on the severity, each person is different. The one thing that's true for everybody is it all gets better with sleep. For some folks, it's not going to improve it and fix it 100%, right? We know that there's clinical cases. Thankfully, we have pharmaceuticals that can help, but give yourself a chance to let your body do its magic and get over 7 hours. And so you can see that reduction. The next thing is, some people might say, well, what if I average 7 hours across the week? So Monday to Friday or Monday to Thursday, I'm getting 5. And then on the weekend, I'm getting 10. And then I'm finding I average 7. And so that is a good start, and that's great. The ideal scenario is to try to get the most number of nights over 7 hours. And then for those of you guys with developing brains, and your brains develop up through, I mean, they're always growing, they're not fixed, but the most development happens up through age 25. So really focus on that sleep and let that brain grow and do what it can do. You can see as we age, we do, for the parents here, need, less sleep, but 7 still is that magic hour for everybody. Okay, so here we have some, and you have this in your link from Hannah, some sleep hygiene, things that can help you improve your sleep. Take a minute and read them over. I'll just mention them in case you can't see your screen, like if you're doing something else right now and just listening. And then you can tell me 1 to 2 strategies that you would like to try to incorporate. Keep a regular schedule. Keep alcohol, well, for you, of course, no alcohol, but keep caffeine moderate. Adults listening, keep that alcohol moderate. Really, it's not good for us. Eat and drink appropriately. And this here talks about maybe a small, like finishing eating about 2 to 3 hours before bedtime. It's hard because you're probably really active and involved in a lot at school, and you're not getting home till a little later. And so you're eating later and then going to bed closer to that if you're trying to get the 7 hours. So one thing I like to recommend is eating a good breakfast and a big lunch, if possible. Pack it, bring 2 sandwiches, get a lot of those calories in during the day, so you have the energy to work throughout the day. Do a brain dump. Take a few minutes to write out whatever's bugging you, whatever's on your mind, and get it out on paper. Another thing for this strategy is to write your to-do list for the next day. There was a recent study, I think it was out of Stanford, with Dr. Sherry Ma. I'm not exactly sure. Dr. Amy Bender out of Calgary was talking about it, and she said that the recent study compared evening gratitude journals, sleep for people doing evening gratitude journals compared to sleep among people doing evening to-do lists for the next day. And those people who did their to-do list before they went to bed seemed to get better and more sleep than those doing a gratitude journal. But they're not suggesting not to do a gratitude journal. We know that so much happiness, self-esteem, and just good social emotional well-being comes from being grateful. The suggestion is to flip it and do the to-do list the night before and the gratitude first thing when you wake up in the morning, to focus you on what you're thankful for and what you really want to take advantage of in the day. Next, turn off your electronics early, at least 30 minutes before bed. Number 6, stretch, read, maybe meditate, foam roll, do something that helps you feel calm and centered. Go to bed before midnight. That's a big one. Set an alarm clock to go to bed. I have a sleep alarm on mine, and it makes a little chime when to remind me to go to sleep or get ready to go to sleep. Exercise regularly during the day or early evening. Take a bath or shower before bed. Keep the room dark. Have a stress-free, clutter-free room. This might take a little effort, but maybe you want to set a date with yourself to do that. Keep it cool, anywhere between 60 and 68 degrees. Use white noise, for instance, fan, if you have a fan in your room or in your bathroom or in the hallway, or a humidifier, a dehumidifier, an air filter. Get outside in the sunlight or fresh air during the day. Number 15, they're finding a lot of good research coming out about first thing in the morning, getting sunlight on your eyes for at least 15 minutes right when you wake up. That helps establish your circadian rhythm and helps actually prepare you for bed later in the day by resetting your timing. So think about those 15 things. Put in the chat 1 or 2 of them that you think you want to be able to do, and that you can be about 90% confident that you can do in the next 2 weeks. Let me hear them. Beth, what do we see?
Sorry, I was muted.
So do we have
Nothing yet. Nothing
Okay.
yet.
So they're going to be putting in there one of these practices. They're going to try to do 1 or 2 in the next 2 weeks, and they're 90% certain that they're going to be able to do it.
Let's see, go to bed before midnight. That's a big one for these students, I would think.
Yes.
A brain dump sounds like a good idea, and I agree. I wrote that down. I don't know how many times I've heard you do this talk, but that is so true. Journaling and just getting it out is so cathartic. Rocio, just chat, just put your answers in the Q&A and we can get those. 1 and 11, someone said that they would try 1 and 11. Another said 2, 3, and 11. Stretching before bed. Another vote for the brain dump and de-stress. Putting an alarm to go to bed.
I love it. Thank you for
Mhm.
engaging. Okay. So I'm really putting this, we give you some education. Now we're asking a call to action. And I want you to think about how you're going to hold yourself accountable to it. Maybe give yourself a reward for doing it, 3 times in the next 2 weeks. But really try to commit to those things because you'll build confidence when you do that. And it is possible to do these and, really incrementally improve your sleep habits. Again, working toward being better, not being perfect and doing all of these in one night. I want to share another little tidbit with you. So there was another study that was released that said actually adding 10 minutes of sleep, just 10 minutes, actually was shown to help improve your overall health and well-being over a period of time. So adding 10 minutes a night. So if it's too much for you to say, like, I have so much work to do, I'm under 6 hours, how am I going to go to 7? What we usually do with our wellness programs is we start small and we say, okay, for the next week, just try to go to bed 10 minutes earlier, right? Let's chunk it down and let's just try to be better. Let's try to just do a little bit more to be better sleeper. Any questions that you want to put in the chat? I know keeping the room dark is really important and not turning the TV or the screens on, keeping that regular schedule, modifying caffeine, really important. It affects us even if we think we're sleeping, like, oh, caffeine doesn't keep me awake. It actually keeps some of the biological processes in your body awake. So like your heart rate might drop later in the night, and that affects the quality of your sleep. So you might not even realize it's having a toll on you because you think you're sleeping. Okay. All right. So now we're going to talk about exercise. How many hours per week do you exercise? And by this, you might be thinking like, I have to be at the gym pumping. And I think we said we had Hannah. Can you revisit the results on that? Can you still see them?
Yes, I can.
Okay, here we go. Okay, thank you. Perfect. So less than 1 hour, about 60% of us, 1 to 2, 15%. Okay, 2 to 3. So you can see here, this is such a perfect representation. This is what happens. So we kind of fall into 2 categories, right? Either we totally exercise and we're athletes or we're real into it. We've identified that it's a great stress management tool and a health and well-being tool, or we have to do it for part of our involvement. And then the other group is at the other end of the continuum, which is like, I do not have time for that. I don't enjoy it, whatever. Here's what I want to do is I want to share with you a little shift in paradigm. Exercise, and we're going to define it a little differently than you think, but it has an effect on all of these things: your brain, your veins and arteries, your respiratory system, your metabolism, your muscles, and your skeletal system. Okay, how does it have that effect? All right. Oh, wait, I'm going to go back. So we know that exercise can be these simple, some like physical calisthenic things. I've included for you in your packet a couple examples with directions in case you don't have access to someone to help you with this. They're very safe, things you can do at home with or without equipment. And you can start tonight slowly, just doing a couple. Crawl around on a bear crawl. This does so much neuromuscular coordination here, right? You have flexibility, you need strength, you need balance, you need stability, and it helps with the body-brain connection. It helps with the brain crossing hemispheres. This simple little bear crawl, even if you're like getting up and getting a snack, crawl on over to the kitchen and do it. Reverse lunges, obviously direct. I'm not going to get into all of the like directions here, but you can read this. I recommend starting without weights. And if you've never done these, holding on to something so you can stabilize yourself. A push-up. Now, this can be done. I'm going to just show you. For those of you who've never done a push-up before, you don't need to start on the ground. Obviously, you know the one where you modify with your knees, but you can also use your kitchen counter or your bookcase, right? And just simply activate the muscles, create the message going from the brain to the body and back again, using all of this muscular system to help you push and pull your weight, basically. Actually, just really pushing, but a squat, another really basic, simple exercise, highly effective. We're often glutes, which means our glutes could use a little attention. They're the biggest muscle group in our body. So building them is really important and effective because it helps increase our metabolism, helps increase our stability and our overall strength. Another good one to think about. Here we have some single arm dumbbells. And even if you don't have a dumbbell, you can use a can of soup. You can use a gallon of milk that's heavy. You can use anything you have in your house. If you feel like you've perfected the movement, keeping that elbow tight and back in alignment. Some hip extensions. Oops, let me just go back here. Sorry. And this motion here, you can do this without a band, just bending and keeping the back straight and engaged, core tight. You can practice, and that really works all of your hamstrings and your glutes. Another good exercise. So what I want to tell you is that you don't really even need this equipment. If you have access to a resistance band and some dumbbells, or you want to ask for them for a birthday or something like that, or you can use weights, things that you have in your house, like I mentioned, food items from your fridge or your pantry, shoes. You could even just kind of contract those muscles and use the resistance of your own muscle strength to put a little bit of tension on them while you're doing the exercises. But make it easy on yourself. When you're busy and stressed, working memory and willpower are low, right? So keep them in a place that you can use them. I have ours out in our living room. Literally, if anyone's watching TV, they just pull them out and try to do that. TV doesn't happen that much, but we really try to have it in a place that you'll use it. And then don't think of workout as a chore or a punishment. It doesn't even need to be something like going to the gym or doing these exercises. And this is what I want you to take away from this. Walking is the best form of exercise that has been identified by multiple medical and health and wellness organizations. The recommendations currently by I think the American Medical Association or Heart Association is like 150 minutes walking a week, or a walking equivalency of like 3 to 5 miles a day. Now, in high school, you guys are walking a ton. This is really also for the parents in the group to know, like, if you're working from home, the difference between moving 2 miles a day and 5 miles a day is life changing. So everybody has, if you have a smart device, there are free apps on there that track it. If you have a device that you wear on your arm, like a watch or a Fitbit or anything like that, that tracks it. You can also calculate it by thinking like, how big is my school? How many times around do I go? But we really want to try to be at a walking equivalency of 5 miles a day. That doesn't mean you need to go out for a 5-mile walk. Normal life should get you to 5 miles a day. It's becoming so important right now is because life was altered, and it's really more to the adults, where that's where the magic happens between that, getting from that 2 to that 5-mile walking equivalency a day. So exercise means movement. So any way you're moving, you can count it. And it doesn't have to be necessarily going to the gym. Getting up, going for a walk, walking after dinner, taking a different path, parking farther away if you're going to the store, walking in, try to increase those steps in little ways. It'll make a big difference in your life. Okay. Any questions? Anything in the chat or the Q&A on exercise? I know we're getting close to time here. Okay. The next poll, Hannah, if you could pull that up. How many servings of fruits and vegetables do we get a day? I think it was low. I think it was 2 to 3. And so we know that you want to be getting 7 to 9. And what I've put up here for you is the recommended plate, a balanced plate. You're going to hear all kinds of things about low carb and high carb or keto, variety of different fads that will be happening throughout your lifetime. Balance is better, and we're always working toward better. This is a great visual of how to create a balanced plate. You can see half of it is vegetables. Why? Because vegetables carry important nutrients that we need for our brain health, for our gut health, and for our overall well-being. A huge percent your neurotransmitters, the things that help your function, are stored in your gut. And so if we're feeding our gut, right, junk food, which we do, processed food, which we do, we're really not giving our brains every advantage to being, strong and vibrant. So fill that plate half with vegetables. And this is not a vegetarian plate, because like the next thing I'm going to say to you is make sure you eat enough protein. And these are the 3 key takeaways. Okay. You can see here that our starch is significantly smaller than we need. You guys probably need a little bit more than that, especially those of you exercising 3 hours or more a week, because fuel comes from 2 sources: carbohydrate, which is, starchy foods, or fat. Those are the 2 ways we get our energy to exercise. Protein is what we get to recover and build our muscles. So if you're trying to do a low carb diet and exercise, it's not going to work great for you. So make sure you're eating carbohydrates if you're exercising. But here are the 3 takeaways. Eat whole food. Eat food that's recognizable. By whole food, we mean recognizable and minimally processed. The second thing, eat fruits and vegetables. Make sure you're getting those servings. Just try to get more every day, knowing the goal is 7 to 9. But if we're starting at 3, sometimes there's days where you'll be like, oh my gosh, I didn't have a single vegetable, right? Even just grab at that point a fruit like an apple, because there's fiber in there, some carrots, some celery, and just try to get those vegetables in raw. Raw is easiest, right? Just some broccoli, whatever you can. Try to just eat more vegetables, and then eat enough protein. Protein recommendations vary, and so I'm not going to get into the macro recommendations or predictions, but you probably need to be eating, minimally, depending on your weight. Some people scale it based on a relationship of a gram for every pound. I'm not going to get into it, but you want to be making sure that you're getting, 60 to 100 minimally grams of protein a day, depending on you. And I can't, like I said, I don't want to do those recommendations for you, but I suggest you look up, based on your height and weight and your BMI, how much protein you personally should be getting a day. I do suspect that you're not getting enough. Eggs are a great source. Hard-boiled eggs are a great source. So 3 things: eat whole foods, eat fruits and vegetables, and eat enough protein. And if you have access to eggs, you can get them pretty inexpensively. Boil them up early, like on a weekend, make a dozen of them, boil, and then have them in the fridge, peel them, put them in a Ziploc, and you can grab them as you go. But there's 7 grams of protein in an egg. So it's a really, good bang for its buck. String cheese, another good one. Yogurt, unsweetened, really, and then cottage cheese, great sources of protein. Okay, and I want to leave you with this because I know we're closing. Becoming is better than being. Carol Dweck, one of my favorite people. I don't know if I have her book here. Mindset. If you ever have to read a book for a class, and it could be nonfiction, investigate the book Mindset by Carol Dweck. It's all about that growth mindset, moving from, here to better. And do you know that that is the blueprint for your success in life? Without the right mindset, nothing is possible, but with the right mindset, everything is possible. So 2 book recommendations, Carol Dweck's Mindset, and then this is another favorite. It's a little heavy reading, but I highly recommend it. Good gift for your parents. Why We Sleep. Super important. Matthew Walker cracks the code. I'd love to hear any questions you have. I know we're out of time.
Hey,
But-
Lori, there was a question that came in.
Good.
What do you do if other members of the family make too much noise, not allowing you to fall asleep?
Well, put them outside. No, I'm just kidding. I'm kidding. A couple things. Great question. Talk to them about this book, Why We Sleep. Share with them the presentation about the significant importance of sleeping. We have to get everybody in the house on board, and you're so right. It makes it really hard. You can get some earplugs. You can use a sound machine. I know we use an air filter in the hallway that is like, I got it on Amazon Day when it was like it's not that big. It wasn't that expensive. There's also sound machines you could put in your room. So you could do the air filter in the hallway that kind of blocks out the noise going around your room or your area of sleep. And then a sound machine in your room, or on your phone if you have an app. That really helps, because the sound machine's a little bit better than the TV. Because the TV, I don't even know if you have one in your room, but the light is problematic. So I think layering on things that can be sound barriers. 1, a really honest conversation about your well-being and their well-being, because they should probably be sleeping too. 2nd, the air filter, HEPA filter. You probably have a tool in your house, a dehumidifier, humidifier, something. Humidifier doesn't really make as much noise. One of those things in the common space around your bedrooms, and then some type of sound machine in your room and some earplugs. It's tough. I know it's really hard when you're not all on the same page, and that's life. And it's okay, because there's probably a reason they can't get to sleep at that time. But I think an honest conversation is a good, like a real non-threatening, honest conversation. Like, we really all need to sleep. It's super important. Any other questions?
Yeah, does anyone else have any other questions or comments? Okay, I think we've got one coming in. What about stress before bed?
Mhm. Okay. Like emotional stress, mental stress, physical stress.
I don't, if you could just type in the Q&A to clarify, that would be great. Mental.
Okay, great. Yeah. So it probably creeps in, and sometimes it creeps in and we don't even realize it's causing something called sleep procrastination. And so what happens is we're afraid to kind of, without knowing it, get into our bed and be still with those thoughts, because we know they're going to flood us. So I found it really effective to recognize if we're procrastinating on getting in bed. Try to figure out, like, okay, what is this trigger? What am I doing? Why am I not getting to bed right now? What am I avoiding? And let me make a to-do list for tomorrow. And there are probably going to be some things I'm not ready to do. And which ones can I just be okay with? Or do I have to stay up and finish like this thing for 10 minutes before I can go to bed? The other thing would be that brain dump of like, what's emotionally bothering me? Just get it all out on the paper. Sometimes it's not even in words. Sometimes it's in a picture. Sometimes it's a poem. Sometimes it's music, depending on it. There's also something called somatic dancing or movement, where there's, you can look that up. Lauren Roxburgh does a lot of stuff on that. And it's really getting in touch with allowing your emotions to escape your body physically. And so it involves you just letting your body move in this free space. Probably want to do it by yourself the first time. You might laugh when you watch the videos, and that's normal, but when you try it, you're going to feel better. And so sometimes even showering, going in water can help release that stress. Then what'll happen, it's almost like it opens the floodgate for your brain to go ahead and write down what's bothering you, what you need to do tomorrow, and then try to go to bed. Also, I've heard warm milk, there's some chemical properties in there, or chamomile tea. And there's a biological process to drinking something warm that can help you too. And also there's aromatherapy is the third thing that can help, like breathing in either some lavender, some eucalyptus. Those are all really soothing. So there's physical things you can do to help bring down that stress. One more thing. Google this. It's the Huberman webinar, and he talks about mental health and stress, and he does this breathing technique where you do a deep breath in, followed by another deep breath in. So it's two. It's like this. And then a slow exhale. And that's supposed to help reset the parasympathetic nervous system, your fight or flight nervous system, that will help settle and let you go to bed. Because if you're in fight mode, it's real hard to get in bed. So that Huberman Lab has a ton of great information about that fight or flight experience, anxiety, depression, mental health, and some breathing techniques that will help you, legitimate ones, founded and grounded in science. That double breath in is really good. You know, the exhale is always longer than the inhale, but that double one is key. Sorry, I know these are like snippets, but I know you guys are experts at researching stuff. So look into that. Other questions?
Let me see. Oh, okay. Somebody asked about the webinar. Huberman, Hubermann.
The Huberman Lab.
Huberman. Hold on, I'm gonna type that in the chat.
It's free. I could probably stop sharing now and put it in there if you you got it.
Is it 2 N's or 1?
It's HUBERMAN Lab.
Okay.
HubermanLab.com. And if you look in there, he has a lot about, there's some adult things on there too, which aren't good for you. But there's one about applying growth mindset, tools to improving fitness. And the one that I'm talking about is, I'm just going to pull it up really quickly. I'll give you the title. Give me 1 second.
And I'll type it in if you'll just share it with me.
Yep. I'm just pulling up the exact name here. Sorry. There we go. It's called Huberman Lab Hertz Anxiety, HERTZ Anxiety. That's the episode. It calls the episode's Master Stress, MASTER stress. Talks about the fight or flight response. It's long.
Okay, so it's hubermanlab.com, master stress.
Yeah, like master stress, like master it, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Lori, thank you so much. I always learn so much when I hear this. I mean, and I've heard it many times, and I take notes, copious notes throughout, because you have such great information. And I hope that you all enjoyed it. You will have a copy of the I think Hannah posts the webinar, and please share it with your families and your siblings or friends, so they can take advantage of this incredible opportunity. But Lori, thank you. And
Oh, thank you so much. I appreciate the opportunity to be here. I was gonna just drop the chat. Oh, good. Someone has all the PDFs. Perfect.
yes. So yes, the PDFs will be part of the post recording and be made available to those that have signed up. So let's see, there was another.
Question.
No, it was the PDFs. Let me see about the questions. My mom is always telling me about breathing techniques that are good before bed. And then people have said, thank you.
Oh, good. Great.
So, well, everyone, thank you for attending. I hope that I'll see you in Atlanta at Scholars Weekend. And if you have any questions about St. Jude Leadership Society, Hannah knows how to reach out to me. And again, thank y'all so much. Have a great night.
Thank you so much. Here, I just dropped it in there. Thank you very much.